Steel Division, Normandy 44. Is it worth a buy? Let's read the words of the developer. Steel Division Normandy is a tactical real-time strategy game that pits players against AI enemies in a single-player campaign, or against several opponents in massive 10-on-10 multiplayer battles. This new game puts players in command of detailed, historically accurate tanks, troops and vehicles at the height of World War II. Players can measure their tactical skills against several opponents in big multiplayer battles or against enemies in a challenging single-player campaign. So what is Steel Division Normandy 44? Well, it's a real-time strategy game, or more strategy than real-time strategy. It is all in real-time, so it technically is an RTS, but don't get confused with RTS like Command & Conquer. It doesn't quite play like Command & Conquer. It has a lot more strategic depth than Command & Conquer has. So I kind of call these strategy games. Before I go into the game, we're going to have a quick look at the graphics settings, because there's a lot of them in this game. There's a lot of settings for everything in this game. It's got a very good options menu where you can control all the controls, you can rebind them, set different gameplay elements on the HUD, and of course you have all the graphical settings. There's a lot of different resolutions in this. It goes up to 4K as well, so a lot of detail here that you can play around with to get the game to run well. It runs absolutely fine on mine, even with a lot of units on the screen. I'm not really getting any big frame drops or anything like that. It runs along nicely. So the game is broken down itself into a single player mode, which consists of 3 campaigns. Well, it's one campaign kind of with 3 branches. You have the American campaign, which starts at pretty much D-Day, and that has 4 missions. Then you have the German campaign, which is harder. It's like your medium campaign, and then you have the British campaign, which again is another 4 missions. Now don't be put off by the lack of missions on this, because the missions are quite in-depth and long. I mean, I've had one of them last pretty much an hour, one of the missions, and they are very well structured, very well put together, very good attention to detail. It's quite deep, these missions. Things change during the course of the mission. I don't want to spoil it too much for you, because these are quite historic, some of these missions. For example, the very first mission is you are trying to stop the Germans from reaching the beachhead to stop the D-Day landings. So you have to kind of set an ambush in the fields of Normandy. It's really, really good. It's really good. But then things take a twist and a change, and it's quite a good mission. And they just proceed on from there. It also has multiplayer, where you can play up to 10v10 battles against other players. If you're into that kind of thing. For me, I'm not really into the multiplayer side of things, but it has a load of different maps that you can select, and there's 400 different units. And one of the good things about this is you can make your own battle group, which I'm going to come to in a second when I explain how the game plays. But finally, I want to mention that it has a skirmish mode, and the skirmish mode is brilliant. You can play up to 4v4, select different sides, select different amounts of enemy on different teams, and also change the difficulty level and select the kind of units that they're using. You can then change the different gameplay modes, whether you have total destruction, where you have to kill every enemy unit, or you can just go for victory points, where you have to get first to a certain amount of victory points. And the AI is bloody good. I'm playing it on easy at the minute, and I'm having a few issues sometimes, so it is going to go all the way up to very hard. So there's plenty of gameplay going on in this game. There's a lot of depth in this game. So how does it work? How do you play? Well, basically you start by selecting your side, and then you make what's called a battle group. Now the battle group is where you choose the units that you are going to have at your command in the following battle, and they are represented on cards. And you'll notice, looking at these cards, that some of the units seem to have a lot of cards behind them of that particular unit, and that's because each card represents one unit placement on the map. So for example, you might have an infantry that has 10 cards. There might be 10 of them, so it's like it's represented as a thick pack of them cards, and you have to take that into account when you're buying them, because when you're putting together your battle group, you can only put together, I think it's 36 different units into your battle group, and they'll be your pool of units when you're playing the game. Now the units range from A, B, C and D. I think it goes up to D. Now what that means is, as the battle progresses, as it starts, you can only deploy A units. and then after a certain amount of time, and there's a timer in the top right of the screen, it'll ticks down to phase B, and then when phase B comes live, all your B units can be deployed. Then it'll tick down to phase C and phase D after that. That stops you from deploying all your big, expensive, good units at the beginning of a battle, which is a brilliant move. It's kind of like makes it feel like a real war as more units came online and reached the battlefield. And I think it's a great addition to the game. It makes the game really fun to play. Also, you have to bear in mind as well, you can't just place every unit down, like all your A units down straight away, because each unit has a value, a point value. And at the beginning of the game, you will only get a certain amount of points. But every minute you will be allocated, say, 70 or 90 additional points every minute to play with. The more areas of the map you capture, you can actually get more points coming in as well. So it's in your interests to pretty much capture good locations on the map. So once the game starts, you'll notice on the map there's a battle line. It's like where red and blue meet. It's like a colour film over the top of the map, and that represents the front line, which is a really neat idea. As your units push forward, that line will move back further into enemy territory, but as they push forward, it'll move into your territory, so you kind of get an idea of which area is held by which faction. And when you're pushing forward into that faction, you know you're going to get attacked. So it's really nice, it's really atmospheric. I love it. The map itself is just amazing. It's so highly detailed. From zooming right out, you can zoom right in and almost see the blades of grass. You can get right down to troop level in this. It's absolutely amazing to look at, and when there's a full-fledged battle going on, it just looks phenomenal. And the sounds in this game are so authentic and meaty that it really does look like there's a war. It's absolutely amazing when there's all hell breaking loose, fighting for an area of land, and there's tanks, machine guns, aeroplanes, anti-aircraft, artillery, smoke going up. It's just freaking great, guys. I absolutely love the skirmish mode. At the beginning of the games, you spend your points, basically put down the units that you want and send them around the map. And what I like about this game, and this comes back to when I was talking about RTSing, all the cover, every single bit of cover is usable in this game. And you even got an icon that you can click and it'll show you the line of sight from any bush on the map or any building. So basically whatever is on the map, you can get line of sight from that as if you were in there, so you can see where your gun can hit and what it can't hit. And it's absolutely vital that you use the cover system. So you spend a bit of time at the beginning of the game looking for places to set up ambush points, to set up maybe a base, a field base, looking at how protected it is from the flanks and things like that. And it is total full-on strategy, but it's not a hard game to play. You don't need a PhD in astrophysics to play this game. You can pick this up quite well, which is a good job because the freaking tutorial system is pretty lacking. It has 6 or 7 tutorial missions which give you the bare bones basic of the game, but I found that a lot of the very handy controls aren't even mentioned in the tutorial, and worse still, they're not even mentioned when you go to the controls menu and look at the different keys. A typical example of that is the left shift command, which allows you to stack moves. You can tell a unit to move fast to one location, then when they get there, do an attack move to, say, the right, and then when you get there to unload into a house. You can give that in one command. But I had to learn that by watching a YouTube video. There's no mention of that anywhere in the actual game, which I think's a bit shit. So as you play in the battles, there's obviously the rock, paper, scissors element going on, where you have to kind of make sure that you've got anti-aircraft going on. You've got to have anti-tank with you. A good thing to bring with you is mortars, so you can use smoke if you have any units pinned down, which I'll come to in a second. If you have a lot of units getting fired upon, you can just pop smoke in between them. There was a good mission where I had to storm this town, and the town had entrenched MG positions, so I just used my mortar to smoke the whole front of the town, and then I charged a whole load of units, infantry units in, and they just went into the buildings and routed the Germans. And it was just such a good maneuver. It was so good to do. It was just like it would have been done in World War II. So you have a lot of depth in your tactics. There is some problems though. I've found that the anti-aircraft is absolute wank. The planes can literally just fly up to it and just strafe it and just blow up the anti-air. They're just garbage. The planes seem to be immortal. I mean, I have seen a few shot down, but more often than not, they just don't get shot down. They're just flying around there, totally immortal. And also as well, some of the units look like bullet sponges. For example, coming to the pinned down thing, it's a mechanic in the game that if you're getting shot at a lot, your unit becomes immobile and it comes up with pinned down. And you even get the ability to click a fall back button rather, which will allow it to fall back. But sometimes it falls back by running into the fucking Germans, which is a bit, that it needs patching. There's a few things need patching. There's a few balance issues as well with this, but none of them detract from the amazing fun gameplay that you'll have when you actually play this game. It has all the nationalities in from World War II. The surrender monkeys is in it, the turncoats is in it. It's like, I think the turncoats were, I don't know whether the turncoat, I didn't see any turncoats. I thought I saw turncoats when the men started surrendering, but I just realised they were French. And I haven't seen any Ruskies in this game. But the main units that you control are the British, the Americans, the Germans, and the Canadians and people like that. So you've got a wealth of maps to play on. You've got a lot of deep strategy going on. The gameplay is great. So it's a cracking game, one of the best strategy games I've played. It's right up my alley. It's a World War II. It's got great combat, great controls. Just needs some tweaking. There's nothing game breaking in it at the minute. It's great for single player, great for multiplayer, and I highly recommend you buy it if you are into strategy and especially in a World War II setting. So there you go, guys. Steel Division Normandy 44, a brilliant game, definitely worth a buy.